This is part 10, the final report on how to leverage ITC's market analysis tools to prepare for the impact of latest US trade measures on Sri Lanka. The report by Dr. Chandra M. Baldenia provides a detailed analysis of US-Sri Lanka trade, including import-export statistics, current tariffs, and strategic insights for businesses navigating US trade policies. It also discusses the impact of US trade measures on Sri Lanka and offers insights for businesses. Date, the 9th of April, 2025. Contact Chandra J. mbuldenaya@gmail.com.
If Sri Lanka goes without GSP+, then Sri Lanka loses $700m/year in exports. Immediate action is critical to prevent further erosion of market share to Vietnam, Bangladesh, and India.
Here's a targeted roadmap for Sri Lanka to regain US trade benefits, prioritizing sectors, optimizing lobbying budgets, and leveraging diplomatic channels effectively. Sector prioritization. Where to focus? 1. HS 6110 is 6200, top priority. Contributes 48% of Sri Lanka's exports to the US, $3.2 billion in 2023. Faces 15 to 32% tariffs without GSP+, making it uncompetitive versus Bangladesh, 0% duty. Action. Heavy checkmark short-term shift to synthetic fiber blends, lower tariffs than cotton. Heavy checkmark long-term, lobby for apparel-specific tariff carve-outs in US trade policy. 2. THS 0902, low-hanging fruit. Already has 0% tariff under GSP for black tea. Potential to grow organic RTD exports, HS 2202, tariff-free. Action. Heavy checkmark expand value-added tea products, e.g., cold brew concentrates. Heavy checkmark push for GSP expansion to cover green tea, currently 6.4% tariff. 3. Electronics, HS 8542, strategic future bet. Growing sector, $90 million to US in 2023. GSP-eligible components, diodes, ICS, have 0% tariffs. Action. Heavy checkmark attract US semiconductor testing investments, e.g., Texas Instruments. Heavy checkmark develop PCB manufacturing to reduce import dependence. 4. Products, HS 4015, underutilized potential. Duty-free under GSP, unlike apparel. US medical glove demand rising post-COVID. Action plan. Heavy checkmark promote non-latex surgical gloves, niche FDA-compliant market. 2. Budget constraints, cost-effective lobbying. 1. Low budget, $1, 5M a year. Focus, grassroots lobbying plus diaspora networks. Tactics. Hire Sri Lankan American lobbyists, e.g., Sri Lanka Association of Washington, D.C. Partner with U.S. trade associations, e.g., National Council of Textile Organizations. 2. Medium budget, $5, 10M a year. Focus, professional lobbying plus congressional engagement. Tactics. Retain bipartisan firms, e.g., Brownstein Hyatt, Akin Gump. Sponsor U.S. congressional delegations to visit Sri Lankan factories. 3. High budget, $10 million plus per year. Focus, full-scale FTA push plus geopolitical alignment. Tactics. Fund think tank partnerships, XIS, Atlantic Council. Launch Sri Lanka Trade Caucus in U.S. Congress. 3. Diplomatic channels, maximizing influence. 1. United Nations, UN. Leverage. Highlight post-war reconciliation to gain Western sympathy. Use UNCTAD to advocate for developing country trade rights. 2. Quad Alliance, US, India, Japan, Australia. Opportunity, position Sri Lanka as neutral Indian Ocean partner. Ask, support for US trade concessions in exchange for China distancing. 3. Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF. Goal: join IPEF supply chain agreement to access U.S. markets. Trade-off: commit to U.S. labor and environmental standards. 4. U.S. State Department channels. Key contacts: Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs, SCA. U.S.-Sri Lanka Partnership Dialogue. For case study, Vietnam's U.S. trade success. What worked? Signed bilateral textile agreement, 2003. Lobbied for removal from currency manipulator list. Sri Lanka's takeaway. Start small with sectoral deals, e.g., apparel quota. Align with U.S. geopolitical goals, e.g., maritime security. Actionable recommendations. Priority action item budget timeline. Tariff relief hire U.S. lobbyists $3 million per year 6 to 12 months. 2. TGSP expansion submit USTR petition $500,000 12 to 18 months. 3. Electronics FDI push semiconductor JVs with India $2 million 2 to 3 years. 4. UN Quad engagement permanent rep in New York, Tokyo $1.5 million per year ongoing. 6. Key risks and mitigation. Risk: US demands labor reforms Sri Lanka can't deliver. Solution: phase reforms, start with EPZs. Risk: China retaliates for Quad alignment. Solution: maintain neutral trade ties, e.g., no BRI military projects. Conclusion: Sri Lanka must prioritize apparel and tea, immediate revenue. Allocate $5 as 10M a year for targeted lobbying. Leverage Quad plus UN for geopolitical trade leverage. Without action, Sri Lanka risks losing 15 to 20% of US exports to Vietnam, Bangladesh by 2026. Need further refinement? Specify which diplomatic channel to prioritize. Exact budget constraints. Sector-specific lobbying tactics. This is part 10, the final report.